You've heard their name, you've probably tasted their coffee, but have you ever toured the Black and White Coffee Roasters Roastery here in Raleigh, North Carolina? Come on, let's go. Hello, I am RoasterKat here at Black and White Coffee Roasters in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm here with Matt.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, doing great.
Good. Thank you for inviting us to this roastery tour at Black and White. So tell us, who are you and what do you do here at Black and White?
Yeah, my name's Matt Ferraro, and so I'm responsible for all of our roasting and general operations of the company.
Awesome, great. And we're just gonna take a roastery tour, so lead on.
Yeah, come along with us.
What's to see?
We have plenty to see here. So I think the first thing to take a look at is some of our green storage. We're really lucky to have the space that we do have. And so we try to keep a lot of coffee on hand to just be available for new ideas, keep down costs on travel and trucks, and to have the most flexibility for coffee on hand. So what you see in front of us is all of our green coffee storage. And we're able to fit about 2 to maybe 3 trucks worth of coffee at full capacity, but also share a good bit of that with, for cafe and wholesale storage and for tech and things like that. And so we've tried to leave a little bit more space to grow and flex into.
How often do you refill all of the racks? Like, how long does it take you to get through all of this coffee?
Yeah, I mean, it varies. We're taking in about 1 truck a month and bringing in, so that's 26 to 28 pallets each month. Every once in a while, we'll see 2 of those come in through. So we're constantly cycling through coffee. Sometimes it'll be more blenders coming in and coffees we're using for our year rounds. And so we're going through those pretty quickly. And also just a really large supply of single origin coffees and different individual lots, so micro lots as well.
Cool, all right. And what's that over there?
Yeah, let's go take a look at that. That's Kyle Ramage. So right over here, not only do we have some really fun art on the wall, we have a pool table. So a little bit of continuing the grocery store trip is in our frozen coffee. So this is something we've really introduced, Kyle and myself, the last 2 years of freezing a little bit more of some of the special lots that come in. Not only for our own security, for these lots to come in and hold up and have a longer shelf life for us. And a lot of the, I think, differences in how we buy coffee sometimes is buying coffee when the opportunity arises, not when the need is there. And so being able to freeze our coffee provides, again, that extra security of purchasing a coffee when it becomes available, not necessarily when we need it. And then we can kind of dive into that and break into it there. So this is where all of our black label coffees, so our competition level coffees, or just coffees that maybe we almost finished, got down to the bottom and really wanted to save for a special project in the future. Sometimes that ends up on the competition stage. Sometimes that ends in our vending machine for some sale coffee around the holidays when we're trying to do something a little bit fun. But we can definitely take a peek in here.
Ooh, yeah, what's in?
And we have quite a mix.
Ooh, I see some names that I recognize. Savage Coffees, we have Jardines, we have Unblended. This is the cream of the crop, top of the top.
Cream of the crop. And so we're really lucky to have these coffees and this menu on right now. And this is something we're kind of constantly working on better ways to catalog, to store, and to process. And right now we're really just using it as a holdover for us and some security on some of these really high value coffees, to not have to rush into the releases and make sure that we release it at a time that makes sense for us and for the customers.
Yeah. Do you think, does Black and White plan to keep most coffee just in regular racks? I mean, because as you said, you're moving through it pretty quickly. Yeah. You don't plan to freeze.
I think so, because I mean, first of all, they're expensive to run and the energy consumption of it. So we have 2 or 3, and we use some of these for some other things as well. But we have 2 dedicated purely to green coffee, and I could see that expanding a little bit. But I do believe that we'll still be keeping everything in just a regular room temperature stable environment. First, for the cost to refrigerate or freeze this place would be significant. And I think that's maybe the blessing and the curse of having so much space. We're thankful to have it to be heated and air conditioned and still temperature controlled. And with how fast we're moving through coffee, like I said, maybe the longest something will sit here is 2 to 3 months, and so we don't really have a need for it, except for the really special or cream of the crop, as you'd say, coffee that needs just a little bit longer until we're going to release.
Cool. So green coffee storage. Then where does it go?
Where does it go from there? We go and roast it. So let's say we can go to the floor. And so most of these coffees are coffees, right, that are in queue or maybe not on menu yet. So maybe some backlog of our blenders that haven't made to the floor. But everything that we're actively working, we'll call the green island. And so this is an island of coffee that we have right here in front of us, in front of our roasters. And this is all the coffee that we're actively working on, is actively on menu and that we're using each day. Try to make it a little easier and a little more accessible to the roasters, to have it really close by and try to limit those steps and be as efficient as possible. So you have this is like a big heart of the roastery here. Not only do you have our 3 roasters, all Lorings, a 15 kilo, a 35, and a 70 down the line. You have our green island of all of our active coffee.
And this is like a lot of coffee. So how many different lots do you have, do you have on deck, I suppose, on menu at any given time?
So it really varies with what's tasting right and quality and where things are. We don't stick exactly to a number. We try to cover most of the profiles that we offer, from everything from clean to really funky, co-ferment, and kind of everything in between, and trying to make sure we have a staple of each one of those on. So it could be as small as 5, but it could be up to 12 or 14 different single origins. We tend to blend a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
So there are maybe fewer coffees that are really pure single origins, and a surplus of coffees that are multiple. And so that does take up a little bit more space, a little bit more work on everyone's behalf. Not only is it on the sourcing and the quality control in the lab, but also on the roasters and the space. And so it does take a lot of effort and work for us to be able to blend at the scale that we do. But we're blending several single origin lots. I mean, we have one coffee, our Future, right now that has 6 different coffees in it, and somehow the roasters still do not hate me.
That's a lot of scooping.
We really try to fight that efficiency and keeping those numbers down of the blends, but also still pushing for what's going to taste the best and what's the quality. And so trying to push and pull between that. But as you can imagine, one coffee taking 5 or 6 coffees does create a little bit of a space problem when you have maybe 10 single origins on menu for us.
Yeah, and the age-old question, pre-roast or post-roast blending?
Ooh, so for us, it's gonna be pre-roast 99.9% of the time. And I'll be the first one to say, when I started here at Black and White, I said, no way am I doing that. We post-roast blend here only. And Kyle, great on him, said, you do whatever you want, just prove it. And we spent a lot of time of comparing post-roast and pre-roast. And I would honestly, there's a rare occasion, but it's usually 10 out of 10 times we're going to enjoy the pre-roast coffee the most. I think that's I feel very Loring specific, at least for us in our experience. But it's the most uniformed and cohesive coffee is when we pre-roast blend. And so that takes a little bit of QC to work through and make sure that we're still experiencing the same final cup, but we're really confident that it works best for us.
Cool.
And we have something that adds quite a bit to that. And I mean, I've talked about how many coffees we have on the floor, how many things we have, and the pre-roast blending. Our newest addition to Roastery is going to be right here in the corner. And so this is going to be the silo from SOVDA.
Wow. Da, da, da. Tell me about this machine.
Yeah, so this is the first one in production from SOVDA, so we're really excited to be partnering with them. We use a lot of their tools around the Roastery in general, but this has probably been the biggest value, time, labor add for us. So yes, it is a silo. It does look a little bit maybe like a spaceship or a UFO, as we like to kind of joke about here. But what this is doing is this is 8 bays of coffee. So this is 8 pallets. Each bay here is going to hold up to 10 to 12 full bags of coffee. And this is where all of our year-round blenders are living. And we're emptying a bay within 1 to 3 days. Coffees move through pretty quickly. The great benefit for us is not only the floor save, but is that the roasters are no longer scooping those coffees. So this is, again, primarily for our year-round coffees, but we're subtracting about 1,000 or 2,000 pounds weight of being scooped every single day. I joked about it just this week. I hopped on the roaster and could not say more how much I love this, how much easier the job was, and how you're able to focus back on roasting instead of scooping. And still trying to keep those efficient days when roast numbers go really high, and you're trying to not only scoop coffee, but hit your marks, roast well, and kind of stay focused where you are. So this takes so much of it out for you. We'll build in recipes, and including pre-roast blending, so that we will actually put our recipes into the module, and it'll spit out those pre-roast blend ratios for us.
Oh, cool! So it does all of the calculation for you.
Yeah, we're trying to remove math from the roaster's head. The most we can.
Smart. Yeah. And I did a video on, well, I did a video on the silo, so if you want to watch that video, click up in the one of these corners and you can watch the video. Obviously, I used to work at Black and White. I don't anymore. I'm trying to do this like tour as if I had not worked here before, but I did. It was a great time. Okay, back to you, Matt.
Yeah, so from the silo, where do we go from here, right? So we're pretty close to our roasters, so why don't we take a look maybe at some of the artwork behind it and some of the roasters. You may notice it as we go around. This place, when we moved in, was just cold gray walls, as you find in most roasteries. And I always go back to, honestly, as an early James Hoffman article back in the Gym 7 days about that a coffee roastery is a manufacturing job, right? And I think at the bottom, we are just manufacturing. We're making a product, we're putting it in bags and shipping it out. But we really try to take every opportunity to put a little more soul into this place and make it a little more fun and feed into our environment. And so I think one of the perfect examples is the artwork on the wall.
Well, and it makes your, speaking from experience again, it makes your roasting day so much more enjoyable when you can look up like quality of life as a person who works in a warehouse, a manufacturing facility. It's so nice.
And so, yeah, we feel really lucky. We had our friend Brian Spillman come out and do most of the art you're going to see around the roastery. And we borrowed from other artists as well to try to breathe a little bit of extra life into here. And
you can see the ampersand from right here. Nice. Oh, yeah. Check that out.
And this is I really love this shot, especially with the lab of this giant glass wall wasn't here when we moved into the space. This was a closed office. And really trying to open it up. Not so that there's visibility, but so there's visibility really from both ways, right? And so that so much of the work does end up happening in the lab. And so trying to make sure that we still feel like one team from front of house to back of house, production to roasters, and that we're all working on one similar goal. We talk about it all the time, one goal, one team. And that's been, I think, like the most giving thing that we've had here, that solidarity of working together. And so we try to really just be very aware of that and have that be very present and make sure that we're one part. And so this glass has been really helpful. And not only is it's also just very beautiful, and it allows this artwork to not be just here, but to transpose into the lab as well.
Yeah, nice. All right, so that artwork, and then the roasters.
And the roasters. All right, so the fun stuff I really love. So we have three roasters, all from Loring. We have the 15 kilo. This 15 kilo is pretty wild to think about. This was the first roaster that Black and White purchased. This was in the back of a cafe in Wake Forest, North Carolina, I believe with carpeted floors. And just a really small, with a ceiling not so much taller than this. So to see where this roaster in particular has come and grown really is a tell of Black and White and how it's grown, because those roastery moves are not easy. We've done this our third roastery now that we've moved into. And so it's really nice to have this cemented here in this spot. Moving a few times gives us a little bit of call it insight on what the places we've made mistakes and how we can do them better. So I think one of the things that I always point out to folks is how linear our roastery is. You saw all of our green storage, but from the 15 kilo, you can see straight out the door. And so that we're roasting down the line into our production team, out fulfillment, and out in the van. And that's been really important. I think our old roastery is being two corners of a building, and you'd be putting in a lot of steps. And so trying to minimize that, and thinking of those little things for quality of life, and even really for efficiency of just being able to focus all the energy of the roastery into the side. So yeah, we have our 15 kilo here, our Elder, our 35 kilo. And so this is our mid-size, and this was our main roaster for a good bit now. We've only had our 70 kilo for maybe 3 years, somewhere right in between. And that was a big change for us. But this 35 was the first big ad that Black and White took on, and was the roaster that I was working on primarily when I started here. So I have a little bit of soft spot for it. But it's been really great, really big workhorse for us. Our newest add to it is the Destoner from Loring as well. And so this is, as we've seen our volume grow and as things grow, especially with coffees like our year rounds or this is just an extra kill step for us for any stones, rocks, and anything that might fall in there. And really simply, all that's being done is it's being lifted by air. And we have a little catch at the bottom here that's gonna catch anything that's heavier than a coffee seed. And so you can actually see what we found in it today.
So none of these rocks will end up in a coffee bag.
They will not. And so not only do we have this step here, we also have our color sorter that we'll see after the roasters, and trying to implement all of these, because I think there's never going to be a one fix in the roastery, and it's implementing processes to get ahead of it. And so not only is the optical sorter, I think, would do more than what most people need, but we just an added bit of security, an optical sorter, a destoner, and these additional steps to try to make sure that we're still putting out the best product we can, and that ultimately these are issues that we don't want. I wouldn't want for myself, and I wouldn't want anyone else to have either. So taking one rock out of a coffee can save you, a $10,000 coffee grinder. So, it's maybe a hard
Small
investment
steps.
up front, but it's a big quality upkeep for us. And then our 70 kilo, big enough to fit inside yourself. And so this capability is to roast a full bag of coffee. We're maybe roasting just a little bit less on that in batch size, but this is where we're doing all of our year rounds. And honestly, we're seeing really incredible quality coming out of some of the single origins that we're putting through here. And at that size has been really exciting to see what this and how nimble this roaster still can be at such great size, and the confidence that the team has in roasting on it.
Yeah. And is there a difference in what you roast on the 70 versus the 35 and the 15?
Yeah, so it varies for quite a few things. There are some coffees that we'll choose to roast on others. Some that are a little more delicate or have really maybe harder, a little more difficult to roast. We'll use the 15. And the way I always talk about these roasters is kind of like the 15 kilos of sports car, your 35 is your daily driver, and this is your tank, your bus, your Hummer. And so they're a little slower moving, really great convection still in this roaster because of how much mass you actually have in there, but a little less nimble. You have to be a little careful with your start and your end of your roast to really get yourself set up, because you have so much momentum or so much coffee to move or to slow down. The 35 for me is a really easy roaster to roast on, minimal changes, and so we'll see almost every coffee can go through the 35 and the 15. The 70 will mostly be used for our year-round coffees based on just really pure efficiency. And we have a couple single origins, like I said, not only some of our like cleaner, nice washed coffees, but we have some really boozy, funky coffees that do really well on the 70, and so we've been experimenting with those a little bit more as well.
Is there a lot that you have to do to kind of translate the profiles across roasters, or how do you make sure that if a coffee is roasted on the 35 and the 70, it's going to taste the same?
It's a great question. It's easier and harder all at the same time. I think we're using a general theory for a lot of our roasts that can kind of transpose over, but ultimately they still all need to be dialed in individually. We'll maybe use a similar curve with similar finish temperatures and times, but then tweak from there. I usually notice that really purely because of the additional size, that these roasters can almost go a little lighter or a little faster in time, because they have so much mass that's also helping push along the roast. And so we'll see a little bit of variance there, but we'll try to, for the most part, we'll aim for similar times and similar end temps across all three, but they will need definitely different power inputs to make the same. We have definitely copied roasters from like the 35 over the 70 and gotten pretty close with just a shot over, but it's really dependent on coffees, and the best advice is just roast, taste, re-roast.
So you're just you're checking it on the QC end of things.
Yeah, and so especially when we're doing that, not only are we tasting quality control every day and doing production cuppings, we're tasting every roast that's happening the day before. And so specifically, if we're going to change machines, we're going to put a special eye on those coffees. Not a cup, we're probably going to be tasting them on filter and holding on to them for a little while to work through. And we won't go through a full volume. We have the availability to roast maybe 1 on the 70 and do 4 on the 35, blend those together to homogenize, and then get a good opportunity to taste those and begin evaluation on a smaller scale. Because ultimately, you're not doing a batch smaller than 80 pounds on this roaster, and so that's a lot of coffee to QC. And so we're trying to find applicable ways where it can fit into production and we can still experiment safely at the same time with hitting parameters.
Cool. Neat. All right, so roasters, check.
Check. Moving right on, the system doesn't stop. We go into another destoner, a little bigger than the one on the 35, but same in theory, just more size. And we drop right into our SOVDA Pearl Mini. So I mentioned we use quite a bit of SOVDA equipment around here. This is our Pearl Mini optical sorter. And so all of our coffee that we roast here will be optical sorted with SOVDA. And so this is the first piece of equipment that we've purchased from SOVDA. And what this is doing is using several little cameras to actually identify and take a look at the coffee as it's passing through and with incredible speed, and knock out any off-colored seeds. So we are talking again about maybe patio floor or rocks. More in particular is Quakers. And so what we're really seeing is the attraction of Quakers, and we found more confidence in our coffees. We've been able to purchase coffees with higher Quaker counts, and we've really been able to up the sweetness and quality, and I think clarity of a lot of coffees without being scared about quality issues when we first bring a coffee in. I still remember when we started our production cupping, especially coming out of COVID and figuring out how to do that again, was when I started at Black and White and was taking cupping samples out of the tray, and was running into issues time and time again, and realized that it was the Quaker count and it was pre-optical sorted samples, which are not getting sent out anyway. And so really for us, the better idea is to take samples post-optical sorting and tasting those. And the quality jump was unreal in clarity, and just how much more expressive and sparkly these coffees were. And I think that there's nothing wrong with Quakers making it through your coffee. And I think that's a hard thing for roasters to justify and do. For us, this quality upgrade is something we would never go back from. And I do think it's one of those things, once you're a little more in tune to it, it's a little harder to avoid. And the control it has over the cup. But I think there's nothing wrong with not having one of these. And this is just a really incredible add for us, and additional security that we're not worried about any quality issues, at least in seed maturation, and that this is going to really help us push for a sweeter cup.
Cool. So for Black and White, this is like a pretty critical piece of
definitely
equipment.
Yeah. So we feel really strongly about it for this, and the product that we're trying to push out is, I think you would say, like a critical touch point for us, and one of the reasons I think what makes our coffee so special.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, and so again, this is really fun, and something what I think is interesting. So our 70 kilo is we use more automation on it than we do on any of the other roasters, and so that was again the same kind of example of pre-roast versus post-roast. Was a thing that I personally just pushed against in the beginning, and I think coming out of that school of thought of automation was going to make the coffee taste better. It's really impressive what we can do with the loring, the automation, the repeatability, especially for these coffees where we're only running a few year rounds or mainstays through it. What's really important, I think, about the 70 is the mass of coffee going through, and why automation is so important is, first, we're now working with the silos, so we've deleted a little bit of that time, but sorting all of the coffee that comes through. So not only is the 70 kilo coffee getting dumped right in here really direct, we're sorting all of the coffee from the 15 kilo and the 35 kilo. So that means those have to be manually loaded into here. So the person who's running the 70 kilo is actually managing both the roaster and the optical sorter at the same time, and moving those coffees through and processing them for the production team to bag.
It's a heavy brain job, or heavy moving job, I feel like.
You're multitasking
all day long.
You're managing, if we can think about it, your coffee in maybe 5 or 6 spots, 5 different lots of coffee you're kind of managing when you're working on the 70. You have coffee being pulled out of the silo for you. You have coffee in your cart or loaded in your drum, in your tray, in your silo, and then whatever else is moving through the optical sorter. And you're managing all of that at the same time. Thankfully, with the Loring's help in pushing through the roast and landing those for us. So it's a different kind of roasting job working on the 70 kilo, if I'm honest. So we're just about wrapped for today, but we're gonna take a look at our production area. And like I said, we're just moving in a linear line down from the roasters. So out of our optical sorter, we jump right over to our SOVDA precision fills. One of the newest ads we did is made a mirrored line. So we're actually running with 2 production lines with a precision fill on both sides, both from SOVDA. And so these are actually where our team is working through all of our bags. We're using the precision fillers, I mean, just for their incredible accuracy, and they're again, just the workhorse of the amount of coffee that we go through, staying in a clean environment and accurate throughout, because these machines going out of calibration are a really large issue if they're not working well. Especially if you're assuming you're filling 12 ounces all day or 5 pounds all day, and we're either overfilling or shorting. Either way, someone's kind of getting hurt and is in that situation. And so these being calibrated and working well is really important. not only for like the business survival and not overfilling and selling bags, but also for on the customer side, especially as we get into the days of folks pre-batching their coffees out, getting a bag in the mail and dosing out 18 grams throughout.
Yeah.
People figure it out really fast,
much,
and they'll let you know. And I think it's great. I love being owning to that, and for us, those have to work really well for us. So they've been a really great value add. So we tried to establish our pinch points, and that's how we brought in most of our new gear of establishing them and working up into them, trying to figure out the way forward and really keep pushing each department. So that's how it worked with our roasters. When we purchased the 70 kilo, I think one of the big pinch points for us was that coffee was ready faster than the production team was ready for it. That they were working under a flow of a 35 kilo and a 15 kilo, and we doubled that overnight with a new roaster. And so that became our new pinch point. And so the way for us to work around that was to add a double line and another SOVDA precision filler. I think there are ways to run longer days. There's ways to turn on 7 days a week. We're only working 4 days a week here, even as volume increases, and we're trying to hold on to that culture for as long as we can. And
we
so
love Wednesdays off.
Wednesdays off is really
nice.
The truth.
410s is the way to go.
410s till I die, or until Kyle says differently. Either way. And for us, there was, I think instead of the 70, instead of the silo, instead of a second line, we could have turned on 3 more days or two shifts a day. But again, that one team mentality of everyone working all the same hours together, all the same shifts to really push through, I think is incredibly valuable to add to build the team. And so for us, it's worth it to buy another precision fill and build another line so that we can double our output there. And so that's what we did here and built this beautiful setup with 2 lines running and 2 teams. Coffee can go on either line. It's really just about what frees up first. And we have 2 teams each day. They're able to work, flex between each other, and work through the whole line.
So they fill bags and then seal them?
Yeah, we can take a whole walk through. So this is they're sealing right here. And then the bags will be prepped on this table before our sealer. And this is our quantum pack sealer. So this is a band sealer. You can kind of just drop the coffee up front, and it's going to run down to your next production person. So we don't actually need anyone in this area while it's just like heating up, sealing, and cooling down on its way out. And then here is just a little bit of prep work as well, as we're just folding the bags, closing them, sealing them, and then putting them on shelves. And then they're going to go right out into our fulfillment area, which is right next door. We have a wonderful team in fulfillment that pushes through.
And these are all the outgoing
so these are our mailers
for
today going out, about to be picked up from the post office. And just this space is what kind of changes midway through the day, or even at the beginning of the day, where envelopes are prepped, orders are prepped, invoices are checked, and then the whole team assembles here at the end of the day to finish the day together. So we'll have, like I said, everyone's working the same shift. So even the roasters are starting the same time as the fulfillment. Even though you'd understand, roasters are going to be done a lot sooner than the fulfillment team. And so the way we work is that everyone just folds down the line. So as the roasters finish up, maybe take a lunch break, they're going to fold over into the fulfillment area and start the fulfillment process over here, while the production team's still finishing, waiting to join.
Nice.
And so it's a really great way, like again, to say that we all finish together and wrap up together, and then clean up and kind of head home from there.
Cool. So that's pretty much like the roastery, from green to roasted to outgoing. And then what is the QC like?
Yeah, so we can head to the lab where we saw the artwork in the glass before, and that's where I'm gonna spend a lot more of my time with Kyle. And we go take a peek in there if you'd like, and take a look at the QC lab.
Yeah.
So this is the lab. So this is our QC lab. This is where I'm spending most of my day for various reasons. Not only you have Kevin here, who's doing some sample roasting on our Link sample roasters, almost in a production style. We have 3 different sample roasters. Not only, sure to be a little more efficient and faster, but I think one of the staples here is that we are in the mentality of taste everything. And so we will always accept samples in, we'll always taste, we'll always roast, and we'll always cup them. And sometimes they're from folks that we know and we've worked with for years. Sometimes they're people that we've just meeting for the very first time. And for us, not only does it give it a wider lens at the market and the industry, we get a lot of touch time on roasting different coffees and tasting different coffees. Here, not only we always have our production cupping every day, but we probably are cupping at least another 2 to 3 sample tables every single day here. Whether it's things that are already in-house, maybe they're offers, maybe they're pre-ship, and so in all kinds of different stages. and we're constantly tasting and evaluating. And we really think of this room as almost a think tank, or like the more of this where a lot of it starts, and a lot of the best ideas happen around the cupping table. And I think that's when our brains are most activated, at least here, is when we're drinking coffee, talking about the menu, and they kind of start here and then really quickly bleed out of this room. But this is where we're tasting everything for the first time. We're brewing. Competitors are working on their brews in here and their practices as well. And so there's a lot of life in this room from all the departments that kind of come through and live in here. And we try to have as much of an open mentality around cupping and tasting as we can, inviting in the roasters, the production team, the front office staff to taste these coffees and be a part of it. Because not only is it looking at the quality, but it's just we're looking as curious folks for new taste experiences, and that's something we're always on the hunt for. So most days it'll be coffee in here. You might end up with chocolate. You might end up with alcohol. You might end up with candy. You're pretty sure to find candy here. Big fans. And all of those for us are really valuable taste experiences. And so we just try to stay pretty curious. And this is where I think like a big heart of that curiosity is actually happening.
Yeah. And is there any rhyme or reason to like organization of things? How do you keep track of all of the incoming samples and all of the, you said you do a daily production cupping. How do you keep track of everything?
So I'll be the first to say black and white is a little bit of organized chaos. And I think we all thrive in it a little bit, but it has to be something you're kind of into to go. So what we're doing is you see Kevin now actually just taking in and roasting all the samples. We'll actually cup these all, for the most part, blind with really limited information to try to even the playing field of sensory. So Kevin's going to roast those coffees in green, just put a simple label on them and leave them on the right. So we have green bins for the green, black for roasted. They didn't have brown. It still upsets me, but it does do the trick. And those are coffees that are staged.
Green for green, black for roasted.
Yeah.
I got it.
So really simple. I mean, we try to use colors all around the roastery, even if it's our brew pins for coffee. And it's those like extra sensory cues are so big for us in coffee in general, but definitely a part of black and white and how we label, market, etc. And so that you'll see sprinkles of that all over, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And so we go through there, and then we're taking those coffees and really just evaluating. We're usually tasting, and which adds to how many cups we're doing a day. We're usually tasting each of those samples 2 to 3 times. We'll taste them pretty fresh, maybe a day off roast, and then again with a little bit of time off to try to give its best full evaluation. And it's usually not until then, though, we'll actually provide feedback, maybe hear back, and decide we want to take another look at something. So we try to be as almost as blind to it as we can, to just really take in the sensory data and not hurt ourselves a little bit with knowing some information. Mm-hmm. And so not only are we cupping, one of the big ads for us has been the pour steady. We use the pour steady all day, and so this
just
is
like
made
making pour overs.
Yeah, so I mean, we could brew 5 pour overs at a time. I don't think that's very helpful for us, but there are definitely times when we're trying to brew 2 or 3 coffees and either checking consistency between them or trying to work through a day of calibration. And really, as much as I love pour overs, there's an incredible amount of inconsistency in manual pour overs. And so this allows us to set a recipe and almost work it as in cupping style, where we know the brew has not changed. It's going to be the same brew every time, and we're going to drink that filter and evaluate it. And that gives us a very blanket place or a very similar place to start for evaluation. So not only are we doing cupping, we're also doing filter, and then we'll even take some of these samples from post-production and move them to our brew bar outside that we're drinking for the whole roastery as another additional quality control with a little bit more time off on a big batch brewer to see how people are experiencing them as well.
So your quality control includes a couple of different ways to prepare coffee, the cupping, the pour steady, and then brewing for like batch brew. Yeah,
and so we're doing that. And then not only, honestly, on my own, is taking these coffees home and trying to live with them for a while is I think where it's hard to do when we're releasing 2 or 3 coffees a week to live with all of those coffees at home. But that's like a big part as well of like actually like living with these coffees and try to take that feedback of maybe not to change that coffee after if it's 2 months rested, it might be off menu for us here. But I think learning and kind of doing that data collection for how different coffees react, how they off gas, how those processes play into it, and almost data logging in our brain.
Yeah, cool. And we talked about how kind of the Lorings allow you to execute the roasting style for black and white. What about the links? Because you have 3 of those, it seems like they're a pretty crucial bit
absolutely.
For the black and white way.
So we've been working with the Nucleus and Link team for quite a while, and we've been really excited about the flavor possibilities on this. So not only these do taste and respond differently than our Loring roasts, and I think that we definitely have some differences there, but these are probably the closest for us in a clear picture of the coffee without any roast getting in the way. But not only do they provide really clear looks at the coffee and the clarity of the quality, we've been using them quite a bit for competition roasting. So not only for just your basic sample evaluation, but these are so nuanced and have so much back-end work in the software of the roaster that we're actually able to change profiles and tweak them and work one-on-one with the Nucleus team to dial in coffees that we're trying to find a little bit more in or push or just do a little bit better and see what else is available to it. And so we've been really excited. We've been using a good bit of Martin Wolf's from World Brewers Cup win last year for some of the more special coffees when we're really pushing filter brews. And so we've been experimenting more and more with really great filter roasts on that coffee. But they're incredibly easy to use. And so we've been able to train more of our staff to use them. And the coffee quality again and again has really hit. It's a lot easier to have a successful, great tasting roast come out of them with as detailed or as simple as you'd like it to be. You can work off of the machine and off your phone to just choose a roast and just go by taking a simple weight and measurement, or you can dive in and build out your own roast curves. And so that flexibility has been, I think, the most important, what's made it so easy to fold into our system.
Yeah, well, and speaking of competition and machines, I saw as we were walking into the lab, there's another machine, another roaster you have sitting out in the, I guess, entryway or the hallway.
Yeah, you want to go take a look at it?
Let's take a look at that one
there.
too. Okay. Wow.
This is our Stronghold S7x. And so this has been probably is the most recent roaster add to the Roastery. And I think we've had a lot of peers and friends that have been using Stronghold for quite a while. We've had a good bit of interest with them, playing with them at trade shows, and trying to figure out where it could be best applicable for us. Having the links, having the Lorings, and trying to understand how this can fold in and really be a useful tool for us. So we found it useful in a couple ways so far. Right now, we were using it for all of our inventory of roasting. So the link is great, but we'll max out at 100 grams of coffee for us, which is usually more than enough to cup it several times, have a filter brew, and take a look back at it. But we'll kind of max you out there. We're roasting about 400 to 600 grams of coffee on the S7, and it's provided us a little bit more life with those coffees. And I think the freshness is a little bit different, where the link is really easy to taste immediately. Same day, we're able to make evaluations, but I think those fade off a little bit faster on that same way. The Stronghold is somewhere in the middle, where it takes a little bit, maybe we'll take another day or two till it's best to taste, and you actually lose a little bit of that freshness, but does last a bit longer. And then the Lorings will take the longest to off gas, but will also last for the longest. So we have these kind of different phases of how we've at least come to understand roast freshness and how that affects the cup to make a couple of decisions. But this has really worked well for bringing in all of our inventory. So a coffee shows up, we'll run it through here 400, 500, 600 grams. So we can let that coffee off gas, we can drink it, we can start blending with it, and we can figure out exactly where it is. Because as I mentioned, I think that's a little bit different about our green program, is buying coffees, some with really, really clear goals, but some with just, this would probably be a great addition to a coffee later on. And so this gives us the opportunity to have a full shelf of everything in-house and start picking and choosing and make blends on the table in the QC lab before we actually move it into production and try to build it on a bigger scale.
Awesome.
Not only, and we also have Kevin heading to nationals for roasting competition just next month, so we're really excited for that. And so he's really been getting some time on the Stronghold, which is the official sponsor of the competition. And so for us, really trying to competition is such a core of this company, of the thing that got us started, and still keeps us going. That this has been an important ad for us to make sure that we're clued in and we're still a part of that as well.
Yeah, cool. Well, we are And the tour continues. What else is there to see?
I think maybe last is our instant production. And so that's something a little different again that we do here. And so that's we're actually making instant coffee in-house and in the roastery.
We switched to a new camera, by the way, because my other one died. So that's why it looks different. But we're doing instant now.
And so over here, we used to have a much larger instant station where we were using our ground controls and I think at the time maybe our Black Eagle, pulling both espresso and filter. Recently, what we've kind of changed into is using the Eversys and using this for our instant production. So this is the Eversys Shotmaster. And what's really amazing about it for us is, again, adding a little bit of automation into the roastery where we can set our parameters on here to know that the coffee will be pulled correctly after tasted and dialed and evaluated. And it'll pull mass shots of coffee, which is what we're trying to do, is pull as much espresso as we can for it. And we're really trying to go with high concentration of coffee and flavor. And so we're using this to just auto pull these. We used to pull every shot manually, famously by Instant Dan, if you've seen the YouTube.
I made a video about how Black and White makes the instant, we used to make the instant. So click the link here or there and watch that video if you want to. And back to here. But now we do it different.
Yeah, I mean, ever changing, right? And so I think there are a few things here that stay static. We're always trying to reevaluate and look at new tools. Sometimes we bring them in and they work great. Sometimes we have to backtrack. But I think it's worth exploring to know. And so this has been a really great value add for us right now as we're reevaluating the instant program and how to make it best work. And so this has been really great for us to use and just pull mass quantities of espresso.
Cool.
And so not only, so we pull all this coffee, it's filtered, etc., and then it goes through our freeze drying room. Let's
Great.
take a look.
Yeah. To the freeze dryers.
And into our instant production room.
I can't see everything. There we go. There we go. Whoa.
And so this room is a little smaller, a little louder in there. But basically what's happening is after we're pulling all of that concentrate, so all of that espresso in liquid, it's getting loaded onto these trays where it's actually being, these are freeze drying them and removing all that liquid, and we're really left with just the concentration, ready to be rehydrated in water. But then these are scraped, loaded into a filler, and packaged for us for instant. So this is a nice little room that we built out for it because of first the noise, trying to be a little more temperature controlled and a little more thoughtful to it and give it its own space. And so we this year built in this room. And actually where we are, Kat, we just redid this whole room that we're standing in. This is a little bit of a flex space for us. You'll notice a lot of home espresso machine, coffee machine. You have the new 8-in from Fellow and different gear that we're either testing, working on, or just currently using. We also have some equipment just for our employees to use for espresso. We have a really, honestly, very beautiful slayer and grinders here where we have coffee that's on menu, off menu, and really just for cafe staff. So we have almost a little cafe set up here, even with as much as the cafe signage here. I'm having a hard time getting people to pay for drinks, but it's okay. We're working on it. It's iterations. And so this has become, like I said, a little bit of a flex space for us. Not only does it give us some more room for gear, we tend to collect a little bit, but has really provided not only a space for staff to be able to make drinks and have coffee, but also for educational purposes. And so not only for meetings, but to be able to invite people in, host cuppings out here while the lab is still being actively used, whether it's from roasting or tasting, where we can have cuppings, events, we can practice for a competition out here, and has been just more of a gathering space for us. This will lead us right back into our training lab.
Okay, we're doing rapid fire questions. Ready? Is coffee roasting an art or a science?
Ooh, neither?
When you're roasting, do you listen to podcasts or music?
Music.
Drip or espresso?
Ooh, drip nowadays.
Light or dark?
Light.
Death before decaf, agree or disagree?
Ooh, I back in the day agree, but hard disagree nowadays.
Correct choice.
We love decaf here.
Hot and fast or low and slow?
Hot and fast, I think.
Development time or development time ratio?
Development time ratio.
Filter and espresso or omni roast?
Omni Roast.
Post-roast blend or pre-roast blend?
Pre-roast blend, you know it.
Back where we started, thank you so much for this lovely tour. It was great to get to see it with you, even though I've seen it many, many times. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow for more, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Nailed it.
I've never heard like and subscribe in real life.
Hit that bell, you know,
that.
let's go.